yes, I deal with what happens afterwards, yes, after libido climaxes. And I have also good news about my presentation. Although it's full-fledged, it's going to be quite short, so do not worry. And please take it as a kind of an intervention, provocation, and a statement about what happens with desire after it climaxes, and specifically what happens with desire under technoculture. I want to talk about desire without another in a non-metaphorical sense. We tend to stick to a lot of metaphors when talking about our libidinal encounters, exchanges, but I'm talking about it non-metaphorically. The presentation comes in 8 exhibits, which you can follow here. In his bittersweet take on libidinal atrophy, the agony of Eros, Byung-Chul Han convinces that we are living at a moment of the progressing depression of desire. This depression results from obscuring the trajectories of a libidinal exchange, which no longer goes from the self to another, but, quote, is one seen, to paraphrase Badiou, unquote. According to Han, again quote from Han, libido today is primarily invested in one's own subjectivity, unquote. We engage with others professionally, socially, and intimately only as performing and achieving subjects subjugated to the command of a maximum gain at a minimal risk for a need of self-appreciation. Human relationships no longer need another. To be precise, they no longer need the other in another. That is, they no longer need a person or personality to frustrate the blunt sameness of the self, tailored from the templates of media technologies that co-design, if not entirely determine, our interactions. Instead, those relationships want a maintenance or enforcement of the self by means of fragmented part objects. It was a quote from Han. Han's point, although made about interhuman relationships, gains additional weight when considered alongside the idea of human communities with technological subjects. Long exclusive to sci-fi imageries, those communities are now emblematized by companion robots, assistant software, or even driverless cars, and gain recognition in endeavors to grant smart machines electronic personality, a project currently considered as part of the European Commission's initiative on artificial intelligence. Even if a right to marry a robot is still the future, technological personhood raises interesting questions about the libidinal aspect of a human-machine cohabitation. How do we expect artificial companions to change the libidinal flow? What does it mean for social organization? How does this strange coexistence what does this strange coexistence may mean for the role of desire? And finally, what happens to the critical metaphors with which we have so far theorized the deployment of desire and its circulation throughout human experience, private and social alike? When Lyotard described libidinal materialism, the machine functioned as an anti-Oedipal metaphor for human complexity and man's struggle with social infrastructures. Ansexis was an idiom of one's libidinal idiosyncrasy and heterogeneity with which the human machines invested themselves into the social marked by attempts to overcome epistemological or systemic restrictions for the body, organism, and the social subject. Now, when technological things, which, by the way, we may invariably see as the fourth sex, start to proliferate into our environment and function as kin, as citizens, companions, assistants, lovers, the metaphor of the machine gains a literal sense. The actual intelligent machine is taking place next to us, to invest its artificial libidinal potential into the social, be the potential amorous, sexual, or take a form of factory labor or assistance work. This investment enhances the structures and systems of the social, but also denounces them with the machine's inability to consume whatever pain and pleasure such an investment is expected or supposed to entail. An interesting thing to digress on now would be the libidinal capacity of technological things and their libidinal orientation, especially in relation to the ability of intelligent machines to produce desire or co-create a desire-based dynamics. Much more interesting, however, is our motivation, like human motivation, behind inventing intelligences that can replace us as desire machines. Most theories of the post-human future link human efforts around AI with immense fantasy to breathe life into inanimate objects or to imitate God, the so-called hubris drive or anthropomorphic drive. This is how it functions in theory. In fact, the production of devices able to mimic human interactions and take over human work, be it work physical or emotional, seem to be more about energy. To be specific, it's about how to manage our organic potency properly in the environment which demands efficiency that we are organically unable to keep up with. Now it's a difficult word I need to pronounce. Energolatria, the cult of energy, which Bifo Berardi believes to define the entirety of our modern condition, has long excluded exhaustion as a driving force for self-preservation. Much of the founding libidinal theory ignores exhaustion as a negative libidinality and instead ties desire with energy and its productive function. But the increasing awareness that human organic powers have limits brings back exhaustion to the spotlight, also in trends and techniques, which unequivocally show that we do not want to be active, and I'm paraphrasing Bifo Berardi as well, again. Attempts to retreat from the increasingly draining environment become a social standard. Central among these is an attempt to retreat from another. For quite a while, I've been doing extensive research on human, emotional, and intimate relationships with technological subjects. And my research in this area naggingly proves that the major fuel for algorithmic love and the reason why so many, and it's a massive business and it's super popular, why so many seek togetherness with digital persons is the energy-saving passivity those relationships ensure. Against the common conviction that the paradigm to name the crisis of social exchanges in technoculture is alone together is kind of a notion brought by Sherry Turkle. So against this, what really defines the vectors of our social desire now is together alone. This we may consider to a tag word for the new economy of the self and the new expenditure deployment of libidinal intensity. Now I would like to play a commercial, which I love to play, which I've been just playing all the time, especially when talking about love, the technique of love, the technique of intimacy, and how we are specifically inclined and interested in the exchange of codes rather than loving or intimately relating to other people or with one another. Okay.
朝ですよ。
Okay,
起きてください。ねえ、起きてってば。おはよう。
おはよう。
あ、今日雨が降るかもしれないから傘持って行って。急がないと遅刻しちゃうよ。
行ってきます。
行ってらっしゃい。気をつけてね。
上級ページ、商品のラインナップについての。
誰かが待ってるっていいもんだな。さっき思ったんだ、帰ってくるとき。おやすみ。
おやすみなさい。
Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Are you familiar with this one? Anybody? Yeah, some of you are, some of you are not. I've been, using it all the time. And so this is briefly, what I've just, played in the background is a commercial of Gatebox, a device advertised as a holographic character designed to provide companionship to its owner, unquote. Although the device does not use artificial intelligence but advanced pattern recognition triggered by projections and sensors, it creates an interactive live character that the user can communicate with also from afar. Just a kind of, a little bit of trivia. It's going to, now they're cooperate because it's so popular, so massively popular. The test version was so popular that decided to embed it in Alexa, so it will be just off soon. I mean, the recent version, mass market version. So I usually use it to talk about the codes of love and how we transfer the codes of loving into the digital symbolic. Now I'm showing this to you as an example of together alone, not alone together, but together alone, and the illustration of relational dynamics that I define as an investment without debt, and which I believe is the new standard for libidinal intensity. It echoes Bourdieu's zero-risk policy, with which he lamented the role of media technologies in human encounters and our reliance on computational precision for mating. But Bourdieu's research, or his comments, his meta-research or comments, were about dating platforms, and interest in artificial partners is all the more terrifying that it unveils human exhaustion by its own species. To be more precise, it unveils the tiresome nature of organic libidinal exchanges and interactions that, sanctioned by the ever-intensifying social structures, templates of togetherness, and now additionally enhanced with high technologies, demand activeness, availability, attention, reciprocity, we are no longer able to embody. Dating a hologram or getting down with a robot seem like austerity measures based on assumptions that human interactions are basically exchanges of codes, exchanges of words, gestures, practices, the pleasure of which gets obviously frustrated in transductive, contingency-bound relationships with people. David Levy, who I'm quoting because I have to, otherwise I wouldn't, the propagator of love and sex with robots, asserts that interactions and relationships with robots will eliminate this frustration. He says, robots will be patient, kind, protective, loving, trusting, truthful, preserving, respectful, and uncomplaining, complimentary, pleasant to talk to, and sharing your sense of humor. And the robots of the future will not be jealous, boastful, arrogant, rude, self-seeking, or easily angered, unless, of course, you want them to be. Now, everybody wants to go and buy a robot, right? Calling this theory a fantasy in the most pejorative sense of the term, Stephen Shaviro observes that Levy, quote, proposes on the one hand that in the near future robots will be advanced enough that they will be entirely indistinguishable from human beings in sexual and amorous relationships. They will give their human partners just as much physically and emotionally that human lovers do. However, at the same time, Levy also presents as an advantage the fact that robots, unlike human actual beings, are infinitely programmable, so that they can be guaranteed never to have desire that differ from what their owners want. Yesterday, Benjamin Noyce spoke about good and bad libido. It's hard to say what kind of libido we talk about in the context of austere and controlling desire like this, perhaps a negantropic one, the one that does not waste itself, but is it still libido? Hybrid relationships suspended between solutionism and weird ethics leave us with a dilemma. On the one hand, they offer an alternative to structured relationships by weakening the social functions of marriage, reproduction, and gender. They also inspire togetherness beyond the socially and culturally sanctioned markers of eligibility. No more proving yourself and subscribing to the social demand. If, and I'm again quoting Byung-Chul Han, Eros is the relationship situated beyond achievement, performance, and ability, unquote. The Tamagotchi for adults, this is my name for it, seems like a climactic form of the erotic ideal. We know, however, that the way those relationships are designed and marketed kills every glimpse of the potential of this ideal, at least for now. Test uses of sex robots have proven a lot of libidinal confusion about our want of artificial partners. I'm sure that you heard about, when Samantha, the advanced sex doll, was tested 2 years ago in Linz at Ars Electronica. She was just completely ruined by the users. Yes, like she was raped to the point of a complete, devastation. Certain is that the developing economies of forming the we understood as couples or as communities, transfer us farther into the digital, where the event of love, the event of sex, the event of flirting, or just the event of companionship turns into a narratized occurrence and exchange that is the consumption of codes. It's where organic appearance yields to technologized presence, the currency of which is non-negotiability and compliance. It's too early for any solid critique and rational assessment of this emerging and embedding trend. I know, however, that it must be theorized beyond the critical split into technophobia and techno-euphoria. I do not see any good assessment tools as our cohabitation with the machine gets stuck in the metaphors of the human social, the human psychological, the human political, the human economic, or in metaphors in general. The only conclusion for now is that desire without another, although it brings existence, quote from Baruch Gottlieb, on a scale very far from the one human beings inhabit, clearly points to the revision of human affordance in relation to libidinal intensity. Based on a radical disjunction between energy and desire, this revision economizes organic effort and directs libidinal drives into non-negotiable effortlessness, non-investment, or no debts. From this emerges a new standard of libidinal efficiency, desire or feelings without organs, to be playful about a famous metaphor. It's based on the paradox of investing great capital into the production of minimal performance and minimal libido. Thank you.